Napoleon Hill writes in Think and Grow Rich that when people want to create great success, they don't have to be the ones that have all the skill sets to actually do it, but they have to have access to those skill sets in what he calls specialized knowledge. That the people who created the most success for themselves, the greatest wealth, the greatest impact, were the ones who surrounded themselves with individuals who had specialized knowledge so that they could collapse time, shorten the learning curve, and skyrocket their results. And so we thought, oh my gosh, we've got a bullpen of amazing faculty that all have specialized knowledge. What if we bring them into this podcast on a more regular basis and pour into everybody who's listening or watching, helping them in these specific areas that really move the needle in our coaching business?
Well, welcome back to the Abundant Coach. Oh, this is such a good one prepared for you today. We have a special guest. We've got a special announcement you don't want to miss, so stay tuned. And you're going to find this unusual if you listen a lot to the podcast, because usually I do quotes at the beginning of the episodes where it's just me. But today I'm interviewing a guest, and I just feel the need to bring in this quote because it's so relevant to what we're going to be talking about for you, for this podcast. So my friend Stacy Hall says, somewhere in the ache is the answer. Somewhere in the ache is the answer. And we've got such a good teaching with our next guest coming up around that. So hold that quote. We're going to talk about it more. But I'm so thrilled to bring back to the Abundant Coach, the co-founder of the Coach Certification Division at Brave Thinking Institute, our executive director, also a person who has generated tens of millions of dollars inside the coaching businesses that he's created. He's got, listen to this, 1.3, I checked this morning, over 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's had over 178 million views. Think about the impact of that. I know for those of you who listen to this podcast, you're here because there's a calling inside of you to do something good in this world, to support people, to grow people. And think about the impact of 178 million views. And then also think about the wisdom and the knowledge that someone who's created this can impart on all of us who want to have a bigger reach, who want to impact the world in greater ways. And I want to just share personally that this person, probably like face-to-face close mentor, has been the biggest mentor in me in terms of being a heart-centered coach, but also an entrepreneur and knowing how to grow a coaching business. So without further ado, welcome back to this podcast, Matt Boggs.
Yay, Lauren Brollier Newton. So good to be with you on this podcast, and so fun to be at this particular moment because you and I were together as we hired a coach and someone to mentor us in terms of how do we launch the Abundant Coach podcast. And we met in Las Vegas, which is where this individual was, and they helped us mastermind, helped us brainstorm. And so here we are. What is this, episode?
This is episode 83.
83, episode 83. That is just so awesome. So really glad to be with you, and I'm super stoked about this particular episode.
I was thinking, Matt, that the audience may or may not know that you really were the person who wanted to have a podcast for coaches. Like, you got me on fire with this vision. Like, I wasn't originally like, oh, I want to do a podcast, but you came and you said, you said, Lauren, and you told me the vision. So what was your original vision? Why was this podcast matter to you and was important to you?
Well, as you and I know, we're reaching thousands of people online, doing 5-day challenges, doing ads and trainings. We've certified over 5,000 life coaches at the Brave Thinking Institute. We've had over 50,000 applications to become certified. And there's this huge calling in people, not everybody, but specific people who want to impact people's lives. They really care about other people. They believe in spiritual principles. They believe in personal development. They know how much it's changed their own life. And they feel this calling that they would love to inspire and impact and help others achieve their dreams. And having a place that, as I looked online for different podcasts, there really was few and far between that were teaching real, beautiful, effective, what's working today skill sets and how to get your message out there and what really transforms lives. So transformational content, modalities, and then skill sets on how to grow a coaching business. But then there was like, you take that and there was nothing doing that, plus mixing it with deep spiritual principles, which is what the Brave Thinking Institute is all about and what we do. So there was this big gap and this big need. And I thought, let's have a podcast. Let's call it. And we dreamed up the name. What are we going to call it? You guys were listening to this or watching this would laugh at how many different names we had for this one. I really love, though, that we settled on the Abundant Coach.
And we had some debate about it. Like I was super, like we had some debate about like this name. And that's what I love about when you collaborate with like-minded people, when you surround yourself with a community of people who believe the way you do. Doesn't mean that you're always just like 100%. Like we debated it, we brainstormed it. There were like 100 names on the board, and it was like like in high school when I was in debate class, you'd have to like debate your point, the reason why it was, but like in a super high crafted way. It was just so fun to dream up this podcast for this audience and name it, and shaky find our way.
And I think that's a great for everyone to hear, because that's how these things start. And for the mentor to tell us, look, you guys, consistency and commitment are going to help this thing win. That 90% of all podcasts that get launched never make it past episode 10. So if you can just outlast the other people, you're going to have success when it comes to what it is you're doing. And I think there's a lot of truth in that in any endeavor,
Yes.
specifically podcasts. And so huge kudos that this is episode 83, well past episode 10. And that was really the impetus of saying, let's serve people. So, the goal is, and I feel my heart expands with joy to know all the comments, all the emails we've received, all the people who are saying they just love this podcast. They love the content. They love the contribution that's come their way. It's really become like a home for them in terms of a content home. Like we all have our favorites that we know when we listen to this, our vibration's going to get lifted. Our mindset will be expanded. We'll be better set up for that day. Our life will be improved. I know the things that I'm always tuning into and listening to, those are the things I'm looking for. I'm really proud that this has become that for life coaches.
One of the things that surprised me, Matt, is the people who would tell me, I've listened to this episode 5 times, or I've listened to this episode 6 times, or I keep going back to this one episode because I know it's what I need. Like that actually surprised me and made me feel so good that what we've created is something that people save in their playlist and they keep going back and expanding the vibration, the learning. That surprised me, and I feel so much gratitude toward that.
Oh, 100%. I actually, this morning, as I was going into our Facebook group, because we have a lot of life coaches in our Facebook group and people who feel the calling to be a life coach. And I sent this over to our team because I thought this was such a perfect example of the type of individual that we reach and we impact. This was a woman named Ursula. She's 45. She posted this. And so I'd love to just read this for anyone out there who feels this way, and let it resonate with you. Let it stoke the fire of desire in you to ignite the dream for the calling to impact others. But so we're running this 5-day challenge, and Ursula joins. And here's what she writes. She goes, apologies for the late post, but here is my why now. So she's writing this, why now is this important to you? She goes, my name's Ursula. I'm 45 years old, live in San Antonio, Texas, with my husband and 2 daughters who are now 21 and 18 years old. For years, I put my goals on hold, choosing instead to support my family, prioritize my husband's career, and make decisions based on financial security rather than personal fulfillment. While I have no regrets about the sacrifices I've made, I've come to realize that continuing to ignore my own calling is no longer sustainable. I've reached a point where my clarity, my life experience, and resilience have prepared me to finally step into the work I was meant to do. I'm acting now because my children are grown, and I feel deep passion to help others live healthier, more vibrant lives as a health and nutrition coach. By pursuing this path, I'm not only honoring my own purpose, but also creating an opportunity to inspire and guide and empower others to take charge of their well-being, just as I am learning to take charge of mine. I'm also showing my children, I love this line, that it is never too late to live your dreams. I want more for yourself, to want, never too late to live your dreams, to want more for yourself and seek out new opportunities when they present themselves. And so I just love that because it really speaks to this idea that number one, it's never too late. If you've had an entire career doing something else, no matter what it is, it's never too late to step into your calling. And number two, that honoring your own desires, honoring, like she's like, it's no longer sustainable. That word that she wrote, it's not sustainable for me to put my dreams on the back burner. That life is ever seeking to flow through us, that we don't get a choice about that. Like as long as we're breathing, the spirit of life is moving in and through us, and we have two choices. We're either going to be a conduit of that life, that joy, that passion that's going to move through us, or we're going to suppress it. We're going to shove it down. We're going to hold it back. And you cannot suppress life energy. It's like a river, right? You try to pull up a dam and all kinds of force, it'll flood over the sidelines. And so that suppressed energy gets expressed as mutated forms of life. It'll be disease, it'll be unhealthiness, it'll be misery, depression, all kinds of stuff. And so what this podcast is all about is about how do we unleash ourselves to more of that life energy that's seeking to express? How do we then also through coaching help other people discover what that life energy is calling them to be, do, and have?
Yeah, Matt, this is so, so important. I love that you read Ursula's writing. And one of the things that I was really, I couldn't give expression to the fact I was searching for this when I first found Brave Thinking Institute and became a coach and got certified. But I wasn't like a stranger to personal development. I had seen lots of transformational speakers. I'd read the books, like all the books on my shelf right now, Think and Grow Rich, all that. I owned those books, but I couldn't, like, it was almost like there was like a shell or something that I couldn't get past. And earlier when you said part of what you wanted and were seeing missing in podcasts in general about coaching was that spiritual component. And that shell was not penetratable because there wasn't a spiritual component to it. So like the shell was like, I keep listening to things that are all the human side of my nature, the strategy and the hustle and the flow, and that none of it was getting in me because it wasn't like touching the truth of who I was. But then when I came to Brave Thinking Institute and I got certified and I learned the spiritual component with it, it was like literally like broke that shell open and opened up a piece of me that was like, I do matter. There is life trying to seek and flow through me. And I think such an important part about this podcast, but just the Institute and our certification in general, is it's not about like trying to put everybody like square peg in a round hole. It's about helping each coach find their unique expression. And then with that at the center, then finding the strategies and the things that will help and support you to create and grow a business that really impacts people. And so this component is so important, which actually brings me to a question for you, Matt, because beyond the podcast, I mean, you and Mary founded the Life Coach Certification Division 16 years ago, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And so, and Matt, one of the things
2009.
I admire so much about you is like the passion that you have for our coaches and what we do here on the podcast and in the Institute as a whole. You've been doing this for 16 years, and like the sparkle in your eye is still so much passion, so much energy that you have to give to our coaches. So what was going on 16 years ago in the coaching world that you said, we want Life Coach Certification Division? What did you feel like coaches were missing, or what were you missing when you first became a coach that caused you to found the Institute, this division in the first place?
Well, I think you can't give to somebody else what you don't have inside yourself. And so I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher. I love that. And so many of the coaches that come our way, like they're the source of what lights them up is helping other people. They might not be being paid for coaching, but their friends come to them for advice, coworkers come to them. And like when you're helping somebody else, break through a challenge that they're having, you feel this life energy. You love it. I can remember, one aspect of my coaching business is love and relationship coaching. And I love helping people find the love of their life. And I can remember, like, we all have these moments. Like, if you think back when people become coaches, like, they'll look back and be like, oh, I was helping my friends when I was in junior high school. There's a moment where I can remember, I had a mutual friend. So, like, one of my buddies was dating a mutual friend. And so the two of them were in a relationship. Then they broke up. And so I was talking to both of them, trying to kind of help them through this process. And, like, I'm a seventh grader and I know, like, nothing, right? I just know that I want to help. Like, my whole, like one little relationship that I've had that I'm drawing on for wisdom of to help them. And I'm like 13 years old, and back in those days, like, you didn't have cell phone stuff. We got, like, the phone is mounted on the wall and it's got a long cord, and I pulled it around the corner. It's like stretched tight, and I'm like in the living room, and I'm talking to my friend, and she's just so sad, and she's overcoming this breakup, and so I talked to her for like half an hour, and at the end, she goes, Matt, you're really good at this. Like, you should do this as a job one day. And I remember laughing it off and saying, oh, thank you. But I'm so glad you're feeling better. And as I hung up the phone, I'm walking the phone back to the wall. I thought, could you imagine? Like, could you imagine if I actually got paid for this? This would be the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Like, helping people through their challenges and helping them feel better. This would be amazing. Never once having the thought that it could actually be real, that a big part would generate millions of dollars today in terms of helping people overcome relationship challenges, helping people manifest love. And I still get fired up.
Yeah.
I still love it, and love helping coaches step into whatever zone they want to empower people in and help people in. And so I think that's the first thing, is that you've got to love helping people, and you got to really care about people, number one. And that if you don't, it's going to be short-lived. If you have no patience, like, who you are. If you're the person who has no patience for people,
Yeah.
coaching is not for you. Do you know how many patience? Coaching is not for you. Maybe consulting, where you just come in and tell people what to do and then you skedaddle, you leave. But to be a really great coach, you have to have a huge heart. You have to really love people.
Can
And the
I
second,
interject here and say
yeah,
something for the people, for the, like, I will say, so Matt is correct in that you if you're someone who has, like, zero patience for people, probably not the profession for you. I will tell you though, Matt, that in my personal life, I still catch myself to this day sometimes having zero patience for people. but I'm working on that. However, what I love about coaching and why I was able to go, my heart is huge. I was a teacher, is I knew that there was going to be structure to it. So it's not like I'm just getting on the phone with someone and listening to their problem for hours and hours and being like, oh my God, my energy's drained. I knew that with the Institute, you were going to give me a structure to move people along.
that's true.
So I do want to just say to the kind of like you know, people like me who are like, yeah, let's listen to grunge and like watch true crime. Like, you can still be a coach because there's going to be a structure for it to flow through. So I just want to give that caveat, because, like, Matt, you're so big hearted. You're like, so, like, just, give anyone the shirt off their back. I didn't see myself as that person in the beginning. And so I just want people to know, like, if you do want to see the world get better, you can do it with the structure.
That's a good point, in terms of there's always a balance.
Yes.
There's always a balance to this. And, and I don't know if you give yourself enough credit with, your teacher background, how much patience you have for, like, the little kids and so on and so
This
forth.
is true. This is true.
But your call out's a really good one, in that what we're not interested in is rehashing old stories. What we're not interested in is dwelling in the problem of the circumstances. You can have you can be compassionately kicking ass with somebody in terms of helping them move forward,
Yes.
and empowering them, and knowing that people need a container in which to feel safe, feel
Yes.
loved, and inside that container is where the greatest transformation happens.
That's right.
Without judgment, it's okay to get it wrong. And so with that comes really the second thing that I want to just call out, especially today, where when those of us who have already said, I want to be a life coach, maybe you're certified and you're listening to this, but your business isn't entirely where you want it to be. or those of you who are contemplating becoming a life coach. And there's this thought that can creep in that can prevent us from saying yes to the life energy, this seeking to be expressed, this calling us forward. And the thought is, who am I to do this? Who's going to listen to me? The market is flooded with life coaches, or there's already people in your circle that like they do this, but you don't do it. Like they're the ones, but you're not the one to do this. And that was for me. I remember now Brave Thinking Institute didn't exist when I became a certified coach. I went through a different training and got certified. And I remember that an individual giving a talk and saying, if you want to speak, teach, coach, and inspire people, come to this special meeting. And man, everything in me just lit up like a Christmas tree. I was like, I want to do this. And when I went and listened to this presentation about you can do this, immediately I was like, well, who am I? Who's going to listen to me? Like I was in my, late 20s at that point. I was like, I haven't lived much life. I don't have much authority. Like I don't have all this success. You look at your own results and you're like, who's going to be inspired by these results? And who can, my mom was already a successful coach, speaker, world-renowned thought leader. And I was like, they're just going to go coach with her, or they'll coach with Bob Proctor, or they'll coach with Lisa Nichols, or, all these other people that are already have huge followings. Why would they want to get coached by me? And I was so grateful for the teaching that someone gave me in this moment, that the calling that we feel is the echo of all the people who are perfectly tuned to be served by us. There are no one-sided coins. Spiritual principle is the law of polarity. There's always a polar energy at work. So no one-sided coin. You have to have the other side of the coin. So the other side of the coin for the feeling of the calling that you have is literally the people who are perfectly tuned to want to receive coaching from you, not from famous individual A, B, or C, but they're going to resonate with you. Now, we've got to do the work to get ourselves out there, get ourselves in front of these individuals. But when we do, they know it. They feel it. They're resonant with it. And they're like, wow, I can really relate to you, and you are my coach. And I'm so grateful for that teaching coming into my life, because it's what gave me permission to say, it doesn't matter that I've got a famous mom who people could go coach with. The fact that I've got this calling is there for a reason. God is calling me forward. There must be clients out there for me if I've got this calling. And so I invite everyone who's got that same feeling to really own that and lean into that, because it's absolutely the truth.
So, so true. I can't tell you the number of times when I'm shocked when people say they've resonated with like there's a part of me that still gets surprised when people are like, "Oh, I resonate with this, I resonate with that. I loved when you said this." And there's like a little part of me that's like, "Oh, really?" Like it's interesting how, like, speaking of just not giving ourselves enough credit, like if you've been on this planet for any amount of time, you've got some wisdom. You've got some things to share. You've got unique experience. And nobody, like, I always like to share, like, in the whole history of the universe and the whole future, there's only one of you. Like, isn't there something so important about that? Like that there's only one of you with your laugh and your way of expressing things and your way of teaching and your way, like, there's only you. And so, like, of course, if you're present as the only one of you ever in the history of time, there's something to give the world without any credentials or this or that. Like, there's just something in you today that you could share that's going to change someone's life. I look at my young son Wyatt, and we'll just be, yesterday we were, I don't know where we were, the store, walking through somewhere, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, he made my day. Look at that smile." I'm like, this kid can't even talk, and he's making people's day because he's uniquely him. And so that what you just shared about your calling, the longing you feel inside is the echo of those who need you. That's why we're here. And that's why there's only one of you. So, like, let's lean in.
100%. Yeah. And so it's got to be this big, wholehearted yes, in fear, in not knowing. I mean, still, as people, you're building your coaching business, there's all kinds of stuff we say yes to that still makes my palms sweat, or my stomach is in knots. Saying, how are we gonna pull this one off? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But you feel the life pulling you forward, and you know that it's connected to something greater, that spiritual principle of when you feel something feels expansive, moving you in the direction of where you want it, moving you in the direction of what you would love, it always leads to more expanded results. The same way that life speaks to us through longing and discontent.
Yep.
That is spirit trying to get our attention, this longing and discontent. And so often people ignore it. We endure it. We just say, I'm going to push through. It'll get better on the other side of this project. It'll get better on the other side of this year. It'll get better. And the truth is, it never does. Like, you've got to address it head on. Otherwise, it turns into suppressed, mutated forms of life that we were talking about.
Yeah. And going back to the quote I started with, Stacey Hall's quote, somewhere in the ache is the answer, is like the human reaction is, I want to shove this down because I don't want to deal with it, or, I should just be grateful for what I have. But right inside the ache, the longing and the discontent, this thing bubbling up is the answer, is the calling, is the next step. And so, facing it is so important, which leads me to, Matt, you've been mentoring me for a long time. 7 years you've been my mentor. And there have been many times where I remember one time in particular, I've talked about this in another podcast episode, where I create this whole funnel. I don't know if you remember this, Matt. This is probably back in like 2020, I want to say, but I create this whole funnel and it just flops. And I call you and I'm like, Matt, and I think I was so in condition. I was like, Matt, I spent $16,000 on this funnel and it's not working. And so you were so generous. You go through the numbers with me. And I remember you saying, yeah, that's not working. Yeah, you're right. It's not working. But you helped me to get out of the story and just lean into, so let's mine the learning. Let's look at the gift. Let's look at the seed of good in that. Like, immediately. And I was so grateful that. And so many times over the years, Matt, I've come to you with challenges, blessings, all sorts of things that I'm going through. And you've just held state with me. And recently I came to you with an ache, a longing. I was like, Matt, I'm a new mom. It's going to get me choked up. I'm a new mom. And I'm already like wanting more time with Wyatt. And I told you, I actually said the words to you, but I don't want to hear this longing. I don't want to hear this long. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with it. And immediately you were like, Lauren, let's lean in. What are you afraid of? What can we do? What steps can we take? And I shared with you that I have such a deep longing to be more present with my son. And in this longing, in this ache, you're like, there has to be a good here. You wouldn't have this longing, you wouldn't have this ache if there wasn't something not only seeking to emerge for you, but to everybody involved, including your son, including your family, including this institute, including this podcast. And you just held state with me. So one of the things that I shared with you is I want to work less and I want to be with Wyatt more. And so this leads us to a very exciting and special announcement about what we're going to do next with this podcast. But I want to have you, Matt, teach into, because at that moment you weren't just my mentor, we work together, we're building something together here. And so I want you to take us into this concept of there is no private good. You've been holding that with me for a long time, and I want you to speak into this concept, and then we'll talk about some exciting things that are going to move forth. But what does that mean, there is no private good? Why did you say that to me when I came up with this ache?
So the spiritual principle of there is no private good is based on the idea, the knowingness that there is only one thing happening. There's one presence, one power. And within that presence and power, one thing happening. It's not duality that's happening from a standpoint of other than what we get to name things. We can name things bad. We can name things good, but the power is in us to call it good or bad, because truly there's only one thing happening. And so there's no private good means if one person is having a longing and discontent and saying, I would love something different. Sometimes in relationships or in business partnerships or in other things, it's easy to look at it like a zero-sum game. Like, if you get more of the pie, I get less of the pie, that kind of thing. And that's very common, very standard business thinking. But there's another way to think about it. There's another way that I believe is more rooted in truth, and we come from a state of abundance, and therefore there's no limit to abundance. And so if someone says, hey, I want to shift what it is that I'm doing, or I want to change what it is I'm doing, or I want to end this partnership, or I want to end this relationship, whatever it is, that inside whatever seems like a great challenge or a great difficulty that you're facing is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so if it's truly good for one person, if it really is them coming from spirit, them coming from a life that's going to be more expansive, if it's truly good for them, then there is the possibility of it also being truly good for us and even more expansive, that possibility also exists. Now, it's a possibility. In order to turn it into a probability and then reality, there's some work to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the gap that most people don't cross. They'll just call it bad. This sucks. I don't like this. This is going to be bad. And so then they end up into a reality where it is bad. And so, Lauren, when you came to me and you're like, and so you listening to this podcast, that what a rock star Lauren is. She's just been rocking it. Awesome. Like, we launched the podcast. It's going phenomenally well. All the things that we're doing are just going really great. Lauren's the director of our coach certification division. This is something that I've personally been invested in and working on for over 18 months in terms of really championing her and leading this thing. And then she comes to me and goes, yeah, kind of feeling some longing, kind of feeling some discontent. And any of you who have ever had an amazing team member come to you and say, I don't want to continue doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Some people just up and leave. That's not what's happening with Lauren. But I want to change. There's that part of us that goes, oh shit, like, no, like, put the foot on the brakes. Like, can this not be our reality right now, and wish for something different? And just, how quickly you pivot to the truth of there is no private good really just depends on how much you've reinforced it and how much thinking you've done. And so I'd be lying to say there wasn't a part of me in that conversation that was like, I would really prefer this not to be the conversation we're having because things were going so well. But like, it was like right as I'm having, it's like if you've ever had a mixed emotion where you're both happy for someone, but you're also aching for yourself or the situation. It was that, where it was like, okay, there was a part of me that didn't want the conversation, but another part of me that knows, okay, well, then therefore, there must be a greater good in this. That possibility has to exist.
Yes.
And so we began unpacking it, saying, okay, well, what does this look like? Like, first, let's just give voice to the longing and discontent.
That was hard for me. I don't know if you remember, I was like, I don't want to hear it because it seems too hard. And you were so good at like, well, let's just talk through. What are you feeling? What are you afraid to feel? It was so beautiful the way you took me through it, Matt, because there was a great part of me that was like, I don't want to hear this.
Right.
Like, right? Like, I don't want to hear this longing. Like, what does that even mean? Like, there was a part of me that just wanted to push it away. And yet you just coached me so beautifully through like, let's lean into it.
Yes. And in that process of leaning into it, you get to identify the fears that are rising up. You get to identify the what it is you truly want, where the rattle is, the pieces that feel constrictive, and so really, the nuts and bolts of this you already gave voice to, which was that you want to spend more time with Wyatt, less time overall working, because we like to roll over here, like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, we like to create, and creating takes energy, it takes focus, it takes time when you're creating great stuff that changes the world. And so you're like, look, I'd love to continue to create, but on a different pace. And so we take a look at what that looks like. We began to dream it up. And so we held state that, okay, there's got to be a greater good in this. And we began to look at the coach certification division. We began to look at the 5-day challenges that we're doing. We began to look at the podcast and say, okay, if we're holding the mindset and the knowingness that what would be even greater than what we're currently doing right now? And I love the concept and the idea that when you begin to ask different questions, you receive different answers. And the answers we receive are always in proportion to the size of the question that we ask. Like we could ask, how can we have a mediocre podcast? Like, how can we just have this be, at least as good as what we were doing before, or just
Yeah, how can we just keep this going while we
yeah,
figure it out?
that's what most people would ask is how can we just keep this thing going? Like, but just not let it die. How can we not let this die? Would be what some people would ask. And it was like, no, screw that. Like the question is, how can we make this even better? Like what's seeking to emerge? What new structure could come forth that the old structure didn't allow for, that would be even more valuable, even more benefit, even more blessing for all the listeners and those who view this podcast. So that's the question. That was the conversation that we got engaged in, and because ultimately, what Lauren is speaking to is saying, okay, more time for why, more time for family means it's a lot of work to produce a podcast. So it means less time being the face of the podcast, running every single episode, doing all of that kind of work. And so we began dreaming the next phase. And lo and behold, as the universe always does, amazing answers started to come through.
Yes. And I want to just, before we even say what the answers are, I want to just say how important this is to any coach out there or aspiring coach who's like, but if I become a coach, this might happen, or my job might this, or someone else might, that idea that there isn't a good only for me. And if I stop doing this, my family, like Ursula said in the thing, I can't live my dream because there needs to be financial security. But if we truly lean into there is no private good, what if me living my dream is what this podcast needs to serve even more people? Like the fact that, I mean, this is what I loved about becoming part of the Institute as a client first, is that blew my mind. That if I'm feeling expansive about something, if I'm feeling good about something, that is not just something that Lauren is manufacturing. That is like I believe it's like a through line between you and spirit, that you wouldn't feel expansive about it if there wasn't some like grand design that was going to pour good into everybody's life. And so you reminding me of that and bringing me back to that, we started thinking about, well, what's next? And I'm like, this is so much better. Like just the idea that if you really live into this, that it's actually your ache, your longing is actually not just about you. It's about everybody's dream, everybody that touches you coming into a deeper fruition to what the vision really is. Like, I don't know, that's just magic. Like, it's just
No,
magic knowing that.
oh, it is, and it's also a relief.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the way that I typically in my body experience it. Is I can tell when I'm whatever I'm connected more to. If I'm connected more to the problem, it feels tight in my body. It feels heavy. It feels and it goes to control. Like then stress rises up because I'm trying to control an outcome. And yeah, whereas if I'm leaning into trust and faith and knowing and spiritual truth that there's no private good, that there's some amazing good seeking to come, and I don't have to actually have every single answer in this moment. Let me just like side note. What I love about the podcast format, what I love about what we've created here in the Abundant Coach, is the ability to have this long form where we can actually like pull the curtain back, open the hood, so to speak, and say, look, here's the process of how the abundant, successful results get created.
Yes.
And we've generated hundreds of millions of dollars in the Brave Thinking Institute. But whether it was our first million or whether it's what we're doing, this process of how we use our mind when we're facing challenges never changes.
Yes.
Like this is the process. Mary Morrissey, I'm so grateful for her mentorship and for her coaching because I've witnessed it in her leading the way, blazing the trail in this when things look bleak and dark and saying, okay, there is some good in this. We don't have to control it all. All we have to do is lean into the next step that feels most expansive.
Yep.
And knowing that it will always lead to something great. And there have been times when in the coaching industry or in the personal development industry, like colleagues of ours are struggling, having like the worst year of their careers, and our business will grow 50%. Is because we're not, and this is all commensurate with how willing we are to be in flow with what's seeking to emerge versus how much resistance and how much our heels are in the ground because we don't want to change.
Yep.
so,
Exactly.
so I love that we get the chance to kind of pull this back and say, hey, you guys, so we're literally in this process right now in this moment, or at least I can say over the last, couple of months where we said, okay, um, what does it look like then? What does it look like to have an even greater service to you as the listener, and or if you like to view these and watching this online, what does it look like to serve you even more? And we began to, you may not, this to some degree depends on how many of these episodes you've listened to, but we have an amazing faculty. Like, we have a faculty where every faculty member has started from scratch and built $1 million coaching business. And that's just such a rare thing because uh, the number of coaches who crest the 7 figures. I know a lot of people out there like to say everybody does it and blah blah blah. Like, just kind of makes it easier than it sounds. It takes effort, man. It takes a certain type of individual. It's the minority of coaches who ever crack 6 and 7 figures, and so or at least let's just say 7 figures. And so to have access to the mindset that says, well, what does it take to do that, is a rare and special thing where they're in-house with us. And so we thought, oh, Napoleon Hill writes in Think and Grow Rich that when people want to create great success, they don't have to be the ones that have all the skill sets to actually do it, but they have to have access to those skill sets in what he calls specialized knowledge. That the people who created the most success for themselves, the greatest wealth, the greatest impact, were the ones who surrounded themselves with individuals who had specialized knowledge so that they could collapse time, shorten the learning curve, and skyrocket their results. And so we thought, oh my gosh, we've got a bullpen of amazing faculty that all have specialized knowledge. What if we bring them into this podcast on a more regular basis and pour into everybody who's listening or watching, helping them in these specific areas that really move the needle in our coaching business? And so that's just one aspect that we're doing as far as this episode is really wrapping up season 1. And we've got a whole season 2 masterminding and brainstorming what we're bringing you. But one of the things that's going to be incorporated in season 2 is going to be bringing you amazing faculty that each have specialized skill sets in certain areas of coaching business to help you launch and make the impact you were born to make.
Yeah, let me just share my enthusiasm and excitement for this, because when you really think about it, like, I got so spoiled when I first became part of Brave Thinking Institute because I'd really never invested in a program before. So I walk in, to my coach certification, and there's this freaking badass lineup of every faculty member having built a super successful coaching business in a unique way. Just like, right? Like, just like everybody in this audience wants to do is, you don't want Matt's coaching business or Lauren's coaching business. You want your own unique coaching business. And what I love about what this audience is going to receive in season 2 is we have our master coach, Kirsten Wells. She was a medical practitioner. She brings mindset, the Dream Builder program, to a Western medical practice. I know many of you have a dream about transforming healthcare or transforming health. We just heard from Ursula earlier. Then you come with Matt Boggs. Here he is, love and relationship, marketing specialty, like the most happy personality that you'll ever meet, Matt Boggs. Then you've got Jennifer Jimenez. Let me just also, if I may, brag on the fact that every faculty member has created super successful 7-figure businesses. You know how rare it is for a woman to create a 7-figure business? Less than 2% of female-owned businesses will ever cross $1 million. So enter Jennifer Jimenez. Health and well-being, creates a dance modality to coach her clients. Like just like, I could go on and on. You've heard from every faculty member on this, but on this podcast, you can go back and listen to episodes as you get excited for season 2. But just the depth of knowledge and letting you know it doesn't have to look one way to build a coaching business. So you're going to get to hear from a variety of people, all different ways that they've built their business, and then their specialized knowledge of building it from the ground up. And every faculty member has a very unique take on specific aspects of building the coaching business that are really going to help. And I know because I built my own coaching business because I had this faculty in my corner helping me, guiding me, teaching me, giving me, encouragement and skill sets and all sorts of things. So when we were dreaming this up, we're like, duh, like we want this audience to have this in ways that have like really never publicly been accessible before. So Matt, I'm like thrilled about this.
Me too. It's going to be awesome. And knowing that this is the celebration culmination of season 1, what I wanted to do was ask you, Lauren, for some perspectives because we've learned a lot in season 1. So anyone who has a calling to get their message out there in a greater way. So whether it's a podcast or whether you want to launch your social channel or grow it in a greater way, I wanted to ask you some perspective questions. Having led this, you really being the tip of the arrow on the podcast for the last year, 82 episodes deep, and taking yourself back to that first mastermind before we had any episodes. You were, I think, I don't know, 7 months pregnant, sitting in sitting in the room with us. We're dreaming of the name of the podcast, what the episodes are going to be. And in terms of big takeaways, like, what do you know now, 82 episodes in, that you would have really liked to know when you first started?
Yeah, I think the thing that is most important, and I think will help this audience, whether you're going to create your own podcast or you're creating a workshop or a webinar or a social media post, like whatever you're creating to put yourself out there, is I think that the thing that I did in the beginning was I worried, I don't want to say worried, but I was so focused on like the outline for the episode and like make sure I have the quote lined up and the this lined up and the that, like just really wanting, because where does that come from? I care. I want to serve the audience. But what really served is the willingness to get on and just share the true story of however it was, whether it's building my business or something we're doing at the Institute or a story of what's going on, or asking the interview guest really raw questions that are on my own mind. Like that brought so much value to the audience, not the outline, right? So what I do on episode 82 that I didn't do on episode 1 is fully trust that the perfect and right thing for the episode is going to come through with the realness of telling the story. And I think so many of us could benefit, whether you guys are creating your social media posts or you're going Facebook Live or you're making your Instagram carousel or whatever it is you're doing. Strategy can only take you to a certain point. And then there's spirit. And no strategy is going to work for you that doesn't feel aligned. So I noticed myself in the episodes where I just tried to be like very strategic or very like scripted. I didn't do that a lot, but I noticed myself, the best parts are like, oh, I'm thinking of this story in this moment and this might serve. That's the things that when you guys email, you say, oh, I loved when you and Matt talked about this, or I love when you asked this question about whatever. Those were the moments that resonated. And you don't want your audience to believe that you're a great strategic thinker. You want your audience to resonate. You want your audience to feel like they're part of it, because if you have a heart for helping people, that's why you're here. So that's what I would say, Matt, is let your message be more aligned with who you are, more spirit driven. Strategy is good, but I think that being you is how people can actually, you're feeling that calling. It's the echo of the people looking for you. Well, if you're not fully you, how do they find you? They're going to resonate with your uniqueness and your true thoughts on things. So I would just encourage everyone, like that's really the biggest part of what I've learned is just be you.
What was your favorite parts of running this podcast?
Oh my gosh, there were so many great parts. I mean, I loved the interview episodes. I loved getting to ask great minds what, like the nuances and the like nooks and crannies of how you do things. And so many times I would just go from my own longing as I'm listening to, John Azaraf or Mary Morrissey or Kirsten Wells or Matt Boggs, and I'm getting to ask you guys questions like, I wanted to know, like, well, what was going on in your mind when that happened? And like, okay, but how do you actually help people do that? Like the real deep questions. I loved hearing the answers to those because it's, I think that's why we like being life coaches. It's super interesting to see the thought process behind what causes people to create and do things and create success. So loved the interview episodes. One of the one of the standout moments to me is when a guest's answer catches you off guard. So I don't even remember what the question was that I asked John Azaraf, but he told me to brush my teeth with a different hand. He's like, "Oh, you want to pattern interrupt? Just take a habit." And I'm left-handed. So he's like, brush your teeth with your right hand. So many people commented and reached out and wrote on Facebook, like, "Oh, I'm totally going to do the teeth brushing thing." Like just these things that you don't expect come up when you're interviewing someone. And I think that that's so fun. But yeah, I just loved getting into the nooks and crannies of topics. That's really been my favorite part. And then hearing that you guys, the listeners, resonated with all those nooks and crannies, that all those rabbit holes we went down. That was super super fun and super rewarding and fulfilling.
How is designing the episodes, whether it's coming up with the topic or the content you're going to teach, changed from episode 1 to now?
Yeah. So in episode 1, I would sit down for like a good 30 minutes and write down an outline, like a very, very specific outline of what I was going to say, and do a lot of research and all that stuff. And then this is for the solo episodes. I'll get into the interview episodes because I think this is actually going to be important for the audience. But by episode 82, I know that when I really hit the mark, it's not me talking. It's something flowing through me. Like when you're really in that zone, it's about being a conduit to what wants to come in to serve everybody. Like it's like Mary Morrissey, our founder, will say, you ever teach and you want to stop and take notes because you're like, this is not my thought. This is something else coming through. So what I realized is that if I have a topic that I want to share with the audience and that we think is important for them to hear, that just a very quick, what's the first thing that comes to my mind outline, and then just go with it. Just let it flow through me, because that is really what I think is why we have the Abundant Coach in the first place. Like we wouldn't have the desire to have a podcast like this if there wasn't something greater than us wanting to seek through and serve. So, super heavy outlines in the beginning. By the end, it was like, all right, God, let's spirit, God, life, universe, whatever you call it, let's serve this audience. And I think that comes from with a confidence too, that all of us can access that source, whether we trust it in the moment when the recording mark goes on, that takes development, for sure. But the interview episodes, one of the things, Matt, that we learned when we went and got mentorship on starting a podcast, and I just want to point this out. Do you notice that Matt Boggs, who has 178 million YouTube views, sought out a mentor? Like, I just want everyone to hear, like, if you're going to be a coach, your model works. Get a coach, like get some help, get some support on the next thing you want to do. But when we went to get mentorship on starting this podcast, one of the greatest things of value that the mentor gave to us was, don't just give an interview like anybody else would interview. Don't just ask standard questions. Listen to other podcast interviews they've done. Listen to their work. Ask them the things that you didn't get answered to when you listened to the other 10 things they did. So one of the things I did to prepare for interview episodes was I would listen to a bunch of other podcasts that guest had done. And then whatever left me wondering, we would just dive in right there. So I would say, hey, I've heard you on other podcasts say this, but here's what I didn't hear. Can you enlighten us? And then we got into some really deep stuff. And so many guests would say, wow, you really prepared and knew me. And so I want to share that that's not just if you're going to do an interview. Some of you may or may not start a podcast, but I like being interested about people, being interested when the person comes to you for a session and they're interested in hiring you as their coach, listening, getting interested in them, hearing the parts that maybe other people wouldn't hear. Like that was so valuable for this podcast.
I translate that into really caring about people, because, and that's what really great marketing is you're anticipating what's the listener going to want to hear. If they've heard this person on all these other podcasts or on the podcast tours, they've heard all the rote questions, they've heard all the standard stuff. So how can we bring even more value to the listener? I love that. And one of the great things about having 82 episodes is you get perspective on what works, on what doesn't work. So what are some of the learnings you've gained looking at the performance of these episodes?
Yeah, well, one of the greatest things, we look at the performance of all the episodes, and our oldest episodes, so our first couple episodes of our interview episodes, especially, have the most downloads. And the newest episodes have the least downloads. And so that might sound like, when I said that to you this morning, it's like, duh, like there's not a lot of insight there, but there is insight there. That when you first put out a podcast, you might only get 10 downloads or 15 downloads. But like Matt said in the beginning of this episode, 90% of podcasts never get past 10 because they get caught up in, oh, there's only 22 downloads. Oh, I better quit because this isn't working. Whereas really just the stick to itiveness and the ability to just keep putting it out there because you know and believe and have faith that it's going to all work out and serve people, is now those first couple interview episodes are the most downloaded episodes of all the episodes we've done. And what if we had quit because, oh, they didn't get that many downloads, you know? So that is really powerful, and I think has a message for our audience like, oh, I did a workshop and only one person showed up. Well, keep having workshops. More people will come. It will create a snowball, but sometimes not right the second you do it.
That's a perfect insight, because the snowball effect is real. It is real. And there's this momentum that gets created where it starts to have its own momentum, but it takes a minute. And we've got to be willing to put in that initial energy and effort and have enough passion about the message that we're giving and those that we're receiving to stick with it in order to get past that threshold moment where it starts to pick up its own momentum. And we're still, just frankly, we're still in it with this
Yes.
podcast. Like, we're still seeing the momentum build, and it's like just starting to catch fire. And so it's really exciting. It's really exciting, but it's taken a good minute to create that.
Yeah.
And then as far as you and I were talking before about the most downloaded episodes, solo episodes, not the actual
Yeah.
interview episodes, but solo episodes you've done that really crushed versus those that were less. I think that would be fascinating for people to hear.
Yeah. So the top 3 downloaded solo episodes were episodes that helped people to transform or to create more success. So people loved the episode, what is full spectrum success and how do I get it? They loved how to identify and overcome limiting beliefs. And they loved what are the money blocks that keep coaches broke and how do I surpass that? So all the most downloaded episodes were really, here are some things that tend to hold me back, but I want more success. And so when I spoke into those types of topics, people loved them. On the flip side, the least performing episode, I laugh because I loved recording this episode, but when we look back, it's like, well, duh. The least performing episode was 7 hard truths about running a successful coaching business. People were probably like, yeah, I don't want to hear what's going to be hard. Let me just not listen to this episode. And the thing is, I did talk about how to transform it, but it wasn't in the title of the episode. So people were just like, 7 hard truths, bleh. Like.
I'll get to that later. Like, let me get this thing off the ground first, and then I'll deal with what's hard and true when I'm facing it. Yeah, exactly. Titles are so important.
Yeah. So just like, I think but that really speaks to, I think what people want is, people do want to have hope, overcome things, have real tools. And so like what we do as coaches, whether you're already a coach or you're thinking about it, it matters so much right now. This is not just like, oh, the abundant coach audience resonates with this. I think if you're thinking about becoming a coach, the world needs someone who's like, yes, this is going on, and let me help you. Yeah.
So in a moment, would love to invite you to just share words of gratitude to the listeners who've been supporting this entire time. And just as far as clarity of transition, Lauren is still a part of Brave Thinking Institute. She's still helping serve in our programs. She's still going to be spotlighting on the podcast. And we're creating space for the next evolution of what's seeking to emerge here in season 2.
Yeah.
And so on behalf of all the listeners, Lauren, who have followed you on this journey, who have felt like this Abundant Coach podcast is this place of refuge, is this place of hope, a place of inspiration, where they've gotten nourished in their mind, body, and spirit for living their mission and stepping into their calling, I want to give a huge thank you to you for all the energy, the creativity, the openness, the vulnerability, the passion that you have brought to this podcast. We're blessed to have had you in this podcast, leading the way, blazing the trail, and helping launch this thing that will go on and on and on and help impact millions of people's lives. So a huge heartfelt hug and thank you to you.
Thank you, Matt. I feel so grateful that, the reason that I wake up and do what I do in the world is because I care about all these listeners and all these coaches who have a message and want to get it out in the world. So the fact that I got to speak with all of you, 83 episodes full, is truly the privilege of a lifetime. That I get to be like some little part of your inspiration and what you're going to do moving forward and all the people you will serve and touch. And the fact that I have so much gratitude that I still get to be a part of this institute, be with all of you, listen in and take notes myself, contribute, and spend more time with my son. I just thank you all for the love, the messages, and also for listening and being a part of a world that's raising vibrations. And so I have so much gratitude for all of you, all 83 episodes, every guest, and for this institute, for we're making an impact. And we can all put our heads on the pillow feeling very, very good about that. So thank you, Matt, and thank you to everybody who's listened to this podcast. And I look forward to what's coming next because it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren, and thank everyone of you for listening. Feel a big hug from us to you, and we will see you in season 2.
Right on. Love you all. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss a new upload. You can help our channel continue to grow as we invest in creating more great content for coaches. Lastly, check the description below for helpful links to the resources mentioned in this video. Thank you and have an amazing day.